Hello everybody, this is Bill McFadden from TonePure.com, and in this video we're going to take a look at common chord modulation, and we're going to do that by using the common chords in the C major scale initially and the G major scale, and we're forming triads in the C major scale starting with the note C, and we're also forming triads in the G major scale starting with the note C. And when we do that, we see that we have the chords C major, E minor, G major, and A minor in common. And we'll use predominant to dominant to tonic chord progressions. The predominants we'll use are the 2 and the 4 chord in the major key, and also the dominant is the 5 chord in a major key. The tonic is a 1 chord. So in this first example, we're going to modulate from the key of C to the key of G with the common chord C, which the two scales both contain. So let's listen to that modulation. So initially we're going from the tonic to the subdominant to the dominant, back to the tonic to establish the key of C. Then in measure 5 we transition, we use the tonic in the scale of C, but it also is the subdominant in the key of G. And then we go from the subdominant in the key of G to the dominant in the key of G, back to the tonic in the key of G. And notice that the dominant in the key of G has F sharp, which is not a common note in the C scale. So that's sort of a clue when you're looking at music. If you see all of a sudden you're in a C scale and then all of a sudden you see a note outside the scale, it sort of alerts you to a modulation that might be taking place. So in this case, we go from the subdominant to the dominant to the 1 chord. Now let's take a look at a second example. We're going to modulate from C to G again with a common chord, in this case A minor. Now A minor happens to be a predominant in the key of G, the dominant being D in this case. So we're going to modulate from C. Here we're establishing the key of C with the tonic to the subdominant to the dominant back to the tonic. And then here we do the transition. We go to the A minor, which is still in the key of C and at the same time the key of G, the common chord in this case. And we go from the 2-5-1, which also establishes the predominant to dominant to tonic chord progression, which establishes the key of G at the end. So let's listen to that. So the next example we'll look at is comparing the C and the F scale, which are closely related. So the idea of being closely related means they're close together on the circle of fifths chart. Notice that C is very close to G, which we just looked at. There's only 1 sharp in G and no sharps in C. And similarly, C is close, the scale of C is close to the scale of F because there's only 1 flat in F and there are no flats in C. So the closer they are to each other on the cycle of fifth charts, then the the more closely related there are. So notice if we go from C to D, C has no sharps, D has two sharps. So there are two notes in the scale that are not in common. And the further they are away on the chart, then the fewer chords they will have in common, if any. Okay, so as we see here, the C scale has these triads, and then the F scale, the F major scale starting on C, has these triads, and we notice that the C major, the D minor, the F major, and the A minor are chords in common. So we can modulate potentially on those chords. So in this example, when we're modulating from F to C with a common chord of F, notice that the modulation or the key change takes place in measure 5, where we have the 1 chord and the 4 chord in common, the 1 chord in F in the scale of F being the F chord, and the 4 chord in the scale of C being also being F. And we're going from the subdominant to the dominant back to the tonic. So let's hear what that sounds like. So initially we established the key in F by going from the tonic to the subdominant to the dominant and then back to the tonic. And then in measure 5, we started our transition into the key of C because the F chord is the subdominant. So then we're going from the subdominant in the key of C to the dominant in the key of C back to the tonic in the key of C. So we've established the key of C now. So now we're in the key of C. And one more example. Here we're modulating from the key of F to C with the common chord D minor. And notice that D minor is the 2 chord or the predominant in C, and it's the 5 and it's the 6 chord in the scale of F. So let's listen to what that sounds like, the modulation. So initially we're going to establish the key like we've been doing in the key of F, and then we're going to transition to the key of C by using the common chord, and the common chord happens to be the predominant. So here we go. So the whole idea of modulating using the common chord is, it was actually initially done back in the Baroque era and continued on. And then, of course, more complex forms of modulation occurred as we progressed through history. But the smoothest form of modulation is the common chord modulation. So that's what sets it apart from most other more complex modulation techniques that you see, is it's so smooth. So you don't have an abrupt change. It's very smooth. So this is Bill McFadden signing off from Tone Pure Music.